Holy schmoly, lads and lassies. Another Sunday and we got another chapter, and boy oh boy, there's a lot to go over. I'm writing this as of Sunday night, so hopefully this is done by Monday, but if not, my apologies. But if I manage to get it out by Monday, fuck yeah. Anyway, as usual, I recommend you read for yourself, but I'm always here if you don't wanna, or just wanna hear thoughts I had. With that said, let's get into it. As with the last 3 chapters, we start right where we left off, and I'm absolutely loving this, because before I caught up in Hunter x Hunter, while I was reading, I felt like chapters picked up in random places. One chapter we're watching Saridnik become one of the most terrifying Nen users of all time, and then the next we're watching Kurapika tell us how he's dying because he used Emperor time too long. So I really like how we get a story going, and we've stayed with it. So the old man in the room is saying he'll come over to Henry, but he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm an old man, tiny bladder, can I use the bathroom?" And my God, Henry says, "Just wet your pants." I'm not kidding. The old man says, "Please have a heart." And Henry just fucking throws the knife into the dude's leg, and he screams out in pain. He keeps on screaming, saying he didn't do anything wrong. And Henry just takes a look into the room and says, "I don't even see any blood. Where's your real body? I'll show you what happens when a human being gets stabbed." I've said it so many times, and I won't stop. Henry is ridiculous. He talks shit, and for a large part can back it up. His shit-talking outfits and pigeons will always be ridiculous to me, and I love this guy. Someone mentioned this to me in the comments of the last chapter, but this old guy was totally a member of the Heily. I just didn't realize at the time, but shout out to those who remembered this guy from like 20 chapters ago. Anyway, he says how he used to be an insurance scammer, and the more you cry in pain, the more serious people think the injury is. He then says it's a tough world out there, huh? And as this fake body disappears, Henry asks him again, where's the corporal in his real body? So we now know that this guy has a Nen ability, and we have some idea what it is, which is creating some kind of clone. And my only thing with that is I'm just curious how exactly this clone works. I'm curious what exactly it can do and how the man controls it. It likely is purely meant to trick and lure people, but if it can also be used to fight, that would be interesting. And if it wasn't clear to anyone, people disappearing and the clone were not the same ability. They were most likely the old man and then Vocante's abilities being used together. And then some of the other henchmen in the background mentioned that the ability we just saw is the same kind of power as the boss, and we don't know for sure if they're implying Kenny or one of the other 2 higher-ups in the Char family, but given the situation, it seems they're talking about Kenny, so his ability might have to do something with clones, but like I said, it could be one of the 2 other Char family bosses. But anyway, Kenny goes to Henry and says how they should just leave the trap for the Phantom Troop, and they can just let the spiders go on a killing spree. And he gets cut off by some idiot gang member going into the room saying he'll get Henry's knife. Are you kidding me? Did this dude not pay any attention? Yeah, I know he was meant to be stupid, but I can't help but look at this situation realistically. How could you be in this situation and not pay attention? But anyway, he goes into the room and disappears just like that. And Henry's only reaction was, "I knew it." Henry says that this must be the trap that had been killing their men, but Kenny says no, this is a different Nen user. The original killer was dealt with by Nobunaga. Kenny then says that the spiders decided to kill the Heily on their own so they can let them deal with this trap. Like I said in my last video, as awful as the spiders are, I'm so glad they're here because Morena is a far more pressing threat right now, and the spiders are the only ones who can really do anything about it. But anyway, Henry heads off saying he'll follow up on his own leads. The poor little guy who ran into the room after Henry's knife realizes he's been transported and he's immediately killed by Billy. His body is then thrown to the side and Billy says that he's level 21 now. He then takes his water divination test and says he's hoping to be an emitter but ends up a conjurer. And Gelato says that a lot of conjurers are left-handed. Then we get to see this beast Terabellum. He's described as a smuggler and assassin, and he's level 21. And all I gotta say is in all my time watching and reading anime and manga, a guy doesn't walk, talk, and look like this unless he's a problem. Will he actually be a problem? Not so sure. Everything so far points to no, but I'm gonna have high hopes. He just says, Mont, this is the last one, and tosses the body that was killed by Billy onto a table. Now, we don't really know everything that's going on here, but Terebellum says that the room they're in has been connected to processing, and soon, Mont and the other girl, Chiffon, will soon have their chance to level up. When Terebellum says that the room is connected to processing, I believe he means whatever room they're in is connected to the room they kill people in, but we have absolutely no idea what these women are doing with these dead bodies or what the room is even for. But whatever they're doing, it's not good. However, one new thing we learn here is that Vocante's ability allows for multiple doors to be created where anyone can pass through. So instead of Luini's ability, which essentially is one door to any place, Vocante's ability is multiple doors to their own location. Then the last things here are Mont is a conjurer described as a corpse disposal / animal feed factory worker, level 3, and the other girl Chiffon is a conjurer described as a seamstress and factory worker, level 6. These descriptions don't give us much to try to figure out what they're up to, but it's definitely important somehow. But the fact we're given their Nen type means that they must have been able to use Nen to some level to take the water divination test. So they should be able to use Nen, but it's also very likely they have no Nen ability and are waiting to hit level 21 so they can basically just get one immediately. Terebellum then says how they had an inside man close to Saridnik, but they haven't heard back from him. And it's possible he was the mystery goop Saridnik was standing over. Because, well, if he found out there was a spy amongst his people, seems like this is how he'd handle it. We then hit a very text-heavy part of the chapter, and it doesn't really stop, but I'm gonna try to do my best to summarize. So Morena is pretty fucking smart. She says that she had hoped she'd have more time until their base was discovered, but according to the old man Gautami's report, that's not the case. She then says she wants one of the 4 people there to go with a guy named Dogman to capture one of Saridnik's personal guards, so she can then infect them with contagion, making them another spy. She wants to do this because knowing Saridnik, she knows he'll want to be the one that kills her personally. But with the succession war, knowing his movements will be too hard, thus the need for a spy. Morena says that whoever goes on this mission can't use room 3101 anymore, and instead they have to enter for room C. Not sure what room C is, but 3101 was the room Henry and Kenny found, and the ones tasked with this job are Matvir, who we met last chapter, and either Saddam or Sodom, or maybe Sodom, a manipulator described as a Black Alley doctor and hitman level 31. And because my options seem to be between Saddam and Sodom, I'm going with Sodom. We meet another character, and I have no clue how to pronounce his name. According to Google Translate, his name is pronounced Oralji, like Oralji. Sounds a little bit like orgy, but there's an L in there, or at least it seems that way. If somebody who's smarter than me can kind of type out how you're supposed to pronounce it, please do, but I will be calling him Oralji. So Morena asks 2 of her men, Oralji, who is an enhancer, described as Garbage Man, level 21, and then Yokotani, a conjurer, described as a corrupt lawyer, level 27. Morena asks them to watch the door Henry and Kenny came across, and says that the only people that'll come through will be mafia members and military. And as of now, they don't know about the spiders, or at least it doesn't appear that way, so they're in for a surprise. But Oralji says that Prince Benjamin's soldiers would be bad news, and asks Yokotani if there's any lawful basis for them to be sent, and Yokotani says no. I'm not sure exactly why Benjamin's special soldiers would leave the first floor to deal with this, but it seems that's what Oralji was implying, and not just like basic soldiers. Morena then asks 2 other people, Notre and Souffle, to go to room 3131 and see what's going on with room 3101. Oh, and before I forget, Notre is a conjurer described as a plumber, level 24, and Souffle is a transmuter described as a hacker, level 28. The 2 of them then head out to their mission, but come to a bunch of doors, and Souffle asks Notre how they get back to room 3131. It's slightly complicated, but basically they have to take several doors to get back to that room. They need to take a door back to the laundry room, I think, the room Mont and Chiffon were in. From there, they take a door to processing, and from there, they take a door to room 3131. Then Morena calls over someone she calls Dog, but his name isn't much better, being Dogman, and he is an enhancer described as a pro wrestler, level 36. Morena says that he has the most important role of all, which is to bring her what she's looking for, which is one of Saridnik's soldiers. Dogman says that he'll need to level up, and Morena tells him to go to processing and take priority on getting kills and to level up past 50. Also, I may have made things confusing / I got it wrong, so to make everyone's jobs clear, Sodom is gonna go with Dogman to capture one of Saridnik's soldiers. Matvir actually opted out on going. Oralje and Yokotani are gonna guard the door Henry and Kenny found, and then Notre and Souffle are gonna check on that same room, but from the outside. I just want to say, since Morena started her meeting, this was all just 2 pages, and it was a lot of reading, but time to go over some important things. First thing is that I have a feeling that these 5 people, Matvir, Sodom, Oralje, and Dogman, and Yokotani, are likely Morena's best people. Maybe not purely the strongest, but she likely chose these people for specific reasons, so although they might not do anything crazy, I do think we can expect more from them than what we got from people like Paduli. I also think that Dogman, being an enhancer and a pro wrestler, he should be stronger than most people we've seen in the Heily. Being an enhancer, he's largely just raw strength, which is a problem. On top of that, he's going to reach level 50, and each time someone gains a level, they also gain an aura boost. So he'll be greatly stronger, and he might end up showing how strong the Heily can really get. Another very important thing we learn is that all Heily members are expendable. They're expendable because we now know Morena can just replace those who have been killed. She still has a max limit, but she's able to replace those that have fallen. Also, based off her plan to get one of Saridnik's soldiers to become a spy, either her ability Contagion forces people to become loyal to her, or her plan is to just torture and threaten them until they agree to help her. I think the second option is more likely knowing Morena, but if her ability does force people to be loyal to her, that's very interesting and very dangerous. Finally, for the last 2 things, Dogman should be the strongest member right now, not only because of his level, but also because he was given the most important mission. Lastly, Oralje, Yokotani, Notre, and Souffle are likely gonna come across Nobunaga and the others, so best not to get attached to them. We leave Morena and go back to Henry, who's gone back to his cat to see if it captured anything important, but that's all we see. Then we move on to some soldiers, which also happen to be a whole new group of new and important characters. And fuck, this part was so text heavy. So once again, I'm gonna try to summarize it, but this is why you should read, because I might miss something, although I'm confident I'll do good. Also, we don't really get the names of these characters, so there'll be a lot of vague description of who says what. The soldiers break into what later appears to be the official Heily office, so not the one they actually operate out of, and no one's inside besides a dead body. The leader says with the dead body, they have cause to have broken in there and can make up a story and report it, but someone says that could be a problem. And complicated situation simple, the Heily members are not registered as mafia members, unlike those of the Char and Shiyu. And if they reported the body and the wrong person gives the report, instead of it being swept under the rug because it was a mafia conflict, it will have to be registered as a mafia hit on a civilian, because all Heily members are registered as civilians rather than mafia members. The soldiers are then seen walking around the boat, and a guy named Sin says that they need to capture Morena and turn her in without troubling Saridnik. The corporal then says that they'll try to work with the Char and the Shiyu to sweep through the 3rd floor looking for Morena, this way avoiding trouble with the army. Then Sin says that they should create a plan in case other Heily members can use Nen. The corporal doesn't know what Nen is, and Sin basically explains that it's something they heard about being popular on the 1st floor. So we now know that no one here can use Nen. Sin then says that Nen is also the reason Saridnik hasn't handled Morena himself yet. He also calls Saridnik Sari, and he says they need to consider how to handle a situation against a Nen user. So he suggests that they get help from someone named Bork, who I assume is one of Saridnik's soldiers. to basically be their Nen guide. Then the corporal yells at Sin for calling Saridnik by a nickname and basically says he'll ruin his life if he does it again. Then a girl says to Sin, why did he have to drag Bork into this, and he says that Bork can give them intel. He then says, essentially, that Morena has a plan, otherwise she wouldn't have started her fight with Saridnik. And just FYI, Sin consistently calls Saridnik Sari. The girl just says that all she sees is an idiot who won't stop pushing the corporal's buttons. The corporal then yells at Sin again, and some other soldiers make a joke about it. So here we get into something very complicated. In short, it's discussed between some of the soldiers that if they report the body they found, if it's seen as a mafia murder, then nothing happens. However, if the report got to the hands of the Hunter Association, it could be trouble. In short, if the Hunter Association got their hands on the body and learned about the mafia war, and if they learned that the mafia could pose a threat to the royal family because it's their contract to protect the royal family, they would very likely feel the need to annihilate the mafia families. This could lead to an all-out war between the mafia and the government. If this happened, boy oh boy does it get worse. Because the Heily are seen as civilians, if they started getting killed by soldiers, then Morena could use it to recruit other normal civilians to fight for her. If this would happen, it's possible instead of 200,000 people rioting out of chaos, it would be 200,000 people revolting against the government. Because like I said, Morena could swing it as the government killing civilians. The lower level civilians are also described as proletariats, which if you need a definition, it's basically the working class. And because this word was used, I believe Morena could also swing the situation as a class revolution, which might seem just like the same thing as people revolting, but it's different and therefore important, because a revolution of the working class is very different from just a revolution of people. They're similar, but one is far more specific and unique and has more meaning behind it. Anyway, Sin then complains that the corporal doesn't punish the others for talking, but the corporal says it's because they're smart. And he's right, these fuckers are smart. The corporal says everything they mentioned fits with his main goal, which is to capture Morena, because if they do, none of this potential chaos will happen. We then learn a little backstory on Saridnik. It's explained in 7th grade. He was undergoing some kind of military class, it appears. He was doing a drill where you assemble a gun. He locked himself in a room and practiced until he beat the academy record. And he claimed it wasn't training, he did it for fun. Sounds a lot like his approach with Nen. Also, someone had argued with him during his training, and Saridnik later shot the guy in the leg and said, "You can talk when you break my record." Also, apparently, the argument in question was the man saying, "Act big just because you're a prince. Show us you've got the skills to back it up." And while going back through this memory, Sin says, "Who shoots someone over that?" And he says that Saridnik is so insecure. A girl then says that you can't apply logic to Saridnik, and Sin is the only one who can talk back to him without getting shot. That's interesting. It's then said that Saridnik is likely finishing his training with Nen before acting. And they also say, assuming Morena can't use Nen is too optimistic. They then say that they should put in a transfer request so they will know if there's a purge. Basically, they put in a request to switch with someone on a higher floor. Because if at any point the government decides to purge the mafia families, all movement between floors will be halted. And this way, if the request is denied, they know the higher-ups are planning something. And that's not an absolute perfect explanation, but that's essentially what's going on. The corporal then says that they're really smart, and says that they could have been in Saridnik's personal guard, but they say it's too much of a hassle. To which the corporal responds with, "The carefree squad would rather sit on the fence." And this leads to very important additions to the story. We learn that these people are childhood friends of Saridnik. They all display a deep, true friendship for Saridnik, but believe they can't be by his side. Sin even says, "Why does friendship have to take a back seat the closer we get to him? That's why I'll stay at the bottom and keep yelling at the top of my lungs." Then he asks, "Sari, is this what you really want?" And he says that, remembering Saridnik shooting the man in the leg. This is very interesting to me. Because of what Sin says, why does friendship have to take a back seat the closer we get to him? I believe this means that the closer they get to him, and the more they see him do, and the more they truly see him for the monster he is, the further they have to be. Almost like they're putting up a blindfold, so they don't have to accept how evil he is. But it's also possible, due to the royal hierarchy and the princess status, being just lonely soldiers, they don't have, I guess, the right or pleasure to truly act or be Saridnik's friends. But I think the first option is what's going on. So we move on, and the corporal, whose name turned out to be Gipper, I think, had requested a transfer with Bork. So Bork is explaining what she knows about Nen. She says that Theta is teaching Saridnik Nen. She expresses that she's mad at Sin because she was close to learning more information, but she was then transferred. She argues with Sin, but gets back to talking about Nen. She says that she doesn't really know anything about Nen, but she could have gotten info out of Theta. But now she's gone, Gipper has no chance. But she goes on to explain that although she didn't see anything, Theta and another guard noticed something around Saridnik, that being his Nen beast. And then they all agree Morena can most likely use Nen. Bork then says that they'll protect their own lives and will avoid Morena at all cost. They'll avoid her while pretending to look for her. And this took me by surprise because I thought the exact opposite was their goal, and maybe I missed something, but I think their new goal is to not only survive, but to leave Morena to Saridnik. And because Gipper was not part of this close friend group, when they told him they need to find Morena, that was all just a cover, and they have their own motives entirely, which seems to be the case. Bork explains it won't be easy, because long story short, all of them got tattoos for their unit, and the person who gave the tattoos was an ex-Heily member, so Morena likely knows what they all look like. Someone then asks if Nen is really that dangerous, and it's explained, yes, it's very dangerous. They then decide to try to ally with the Char and Shiyu to presumably learn about and how to use Nen. Then a girl asks Bork, what will they do if one of them is captured by Morena? Bork gives a, not sure what to call it, but let's go with a concerning look, and says, right, we should plan for that too. And the chapter ends. Whew. So lots to go over with what I just summarized. So this group of 6 people were all shown to be real, true friends of Saridnik. And in this summary, you can't appreciate it as much as you do when reading, but it's really meant to be that way. They're meant to be shown as genuine friends. Although I don't think it's meant to change how we see Saridnik, we do see that these people see him in a much greater light. They look up to him, love him, and respect him. They almost try to humanize him. And that's just a fascinating new level to add to this story. I almost feel that this introduction of his friends can and or will be used to further evolve Saridnik into a monster. It seems unrealistic to me for Saridnik to be humanized or turn good at any point in time, which then leads me to think of the possibility of them being used to more or less cement his role as a monster or absolute evil. I wonder if there will come a situation where he has to or wants to kill them, to kill his only friends, to truly become a monster, to become absolute evil. And how or why a situation like that could happen, I think it might be getting set up. These 6 members seem to want to learn Nen, and it also appears that specifically Bork wants to learn it. It raises the question, what if she were to be captured by Morena and infected? What if she was gifted Nen like she wanted, but is forced to work against Saridnik? Or, if she has free will, then she has to figure out how to navigate between Saridnik and Morena. And on top of that, navigate around Saridnik's Nen Beast. His Nen Beast could be a huge problem, but it's a situation like that where I think Saridnik could kill one of his only friends. If he thought she was betraying him, or thought she was up to something, or if she couldn't fully explain what she's up to, it could all be reason for Saridnik to kill her or even just want to kill her. He also doesn't respect women, so yeah, a lot of women are on thin ice. Also, when it comes to this group of friends, a vast majority of them are incredibly smart. They showed us how they were able to think about so many different angles of things and think about so many possibilities. This is a very interesting set of people, and I'm incredibly excited to see where they go, although I'm sure they're headed into some terrible things. Now onto some just overall thoughts on the chapter. I think it's lovely, in a chaotic way, how tense things are getting on the Black Whale. It seems each chapter we've gotten is pushing everyone on the Black Whale closer to absolute chaos. Every action so far has pushed everything closer to the point of destruction, and it's seeming less and less likely that things can be settled in a way that doesn't destroy everything. But that's the beautiful horror of Morena. Her goal is to destroy the world. Her goal is to destroy everything on the boat besides the black whale itself. It's honestly been Morena in the shadows pushing all of this chaos forward. And with this chapter, I think Morena cemented herself as a centerpiece of the current Hunter x Hunter story. Also, something I wanted to mention earlier, but didn't, was I found it so funny that Morena was just in a gamer chair in her office. But on a more serious note, I think it's interesting how Togashi seemed to draw her in a different way. She seemed prettier and more innocent almost. She seemed happier. And I think this is a creative way to show that a world of destruction and chaos is the world Morena thrives in. It's the world she wants to live in. She seems so at peace, happy, and calm because she's in the middle of chaos. Finally, like I said in my last video, I think we're sticking with this mafia war until it collides with other storylines we got going on. And it appears we're creeping up on the mafia and Saridnik stories colliding. So I wouldn't be surprised if we hop back into Saridnik's story soon. And once we're at that point, it all depends on how organized Togashi is. I'd imagine if he has a direct story set, we'll be focusing on Saridnik and the Mafia War for the next several chapters at least. However, once we get back to Saridnik, we could start hopping around the rest of the princes and the Succession War. I hope we stick with the Mafia War and things surrounding it, but at the end of the day, as long as we get a new chapter, I'm more than happy. This week's chapter was a info-heavy one, so I encourage you to not only add things I missed or forgot, but I encourage you to discuss your thoughts in the comments. I'll have a regular video posted later this week, and other than that, I'll see you next time.